I started and created Power Magazine and the Slingshot inside of a Starbucks on my iPhone. It was much better than just a good start because it came directly from my heart. This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West. We have more questions to answer here today at the Power Project. I can barely keep up with all the questions. I can't keep up with all the questions, but you guys can barely keep up with all the videos. So make sure you're watching them. Make sure you go back and watch some of the older videos and make sure you're not asking the same question twice or thrice. Let's make sure we keep moving this thing forward. The question today from Brandon is about the squat. We all got questions about the squat, don't we? His question is in regards to leaning forward in the squat. Now, there's a big difference between leaning forward and rounding over. Let me cover up my forehead cleavage here. Got some massive forehead cleavage. I need to get some like Botox or something. I got like Sharpay thing going on here. I don't know what's going on. Maybe because I was so fat, my head was so fat before. I don't know. But I'm self-conscious, so stop commenting on it, please. I try to cover it up as much as I can. But you know what? Can't hide it all, can you? Especially in HD. That's why I don't upload this shit in HD that often. I want you to see my nose hairs. His question about leaning forward in a squat, he said that he's getting a lot of guys telling him that he's leaning forward quite a bit in his squat. When he tries a wider stance, he's able to stay more upright. But then he gets pain in the groin and the hips, which is very common. You squat wide, it's very typical for that to hurt. First things first is I would try something in between whatever it is that's making you lean forward, whatever stance that is, and this wider stance that you're utilizing. So maybe just bring your stance out a little bit rather than a lot of it. That might be the problem solver right there. Something else to look into would be an Olympic lifting shoe. There's lots of variations out there. You have some higher raised ones and some ones that aren't raised up super high. Some guys who have okay mobility, who don't have absolutely crappy mobility, can utilize just a slightly elevated heel, and that would be like a Reebok Olympic lifting shoe. The Nike are much higher, and the Adidas is, I believe, about a similar height to the Nike shoe. So if you need a higher shoe, then you're going to want to look into those. If you need a lower shoe, you're going to want to look into those. Usually if you're at a CrossFit type gym, there's somebody you can bum some off of. If you know an Olympic lifter, you can cram your foot into one of their shoes. It might be too big, might be too small, but at least you get an idea of what the hell's going on. Slipping a 10-pound plate underneath your ankles or underneath your heels is not the same thing. A 5-pound plate is not the same thing. It's not going to really mimic it the way that I'm looking for. So give that a try. But let's talk about bar placement here for a second. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding going on with bar placement. So if you're going to lean forward, if you're going to get like, let's say you're straight up and down, you're like this, right? And you're going to start to lean forward a little bit like this. If you're going to lean forward like that, and let's say my middle finger right here, let's say my middle finger is, the top of my middle finger is like your neck. The top of my middle finger is your neck and you're leaning forward. Well, that's a little too much. Let's see, if you're leaning forward about there, and if your middle finger is your neck, do you want to put that weight right on top of that middle finger, almost right on top of your neck with that lean forward like that? And let's say back here is your hips. Now we end up with a poor relationship between where the hips are, where our shoulders are, where the barbell is, and shit gets to be crazy. And then you're going to come up out of the bottom of the squat. Your hips are going to shoot up first. You're going to end up rounding over. Having the hips shoot up first is not always necessarily a terrible thing, but it can be a terrible thing if there's rounding of the lower back. It's just going to make your squats harder. They'll be harder to recover from. You'll just be a less efficient squatter overall. You'll be able to squat less frequently, which is not good. You want to be able to recover from your workouts easier and go into each workout fresh. So if you're going to be leaning forward, which again is okay, Let's keep that in mind. Ed Cohn leaned forward quite a bit. Dan Green leans forward quite a bit. But if you look at, like, Dan Green's a great example. If you look at Dan Green, he kind of establishes this position from the beginning. He unracks the weight, and then the guy doesn't move from there. I mean, the guy's got tons of muscle on him. I mean, he looks like, with his shirt off, he looks like he's like 290 pounds or something. He's huge. He's absolutely huge. He weighs about 250. But he's just muscle on top of muscle. He's jacked. Not so tan, but he's jacked. And so he can lean forward a little bit in his squats, but once he gets that lean, and once he's in that position, he doesn't lean forward any further. So he doesn't get to the bottom position. He doesn't like lean forward like this from the unrack and then squat down and then lean forward more and then try to come up out of that, because you're going to end up craning over and getting all crazy. So what Dan Green does, Dan Green has the ability to force his knees out really well. And that's going to be something you're going to want to focus on. You want to focus on the strength of your hips and groin and also the mobility. I'm not sure about Dan Green's mobility work, if he does work on it much, but I do know the guy used to be a cheerleader, and I do know he's got great mobility. I mean, you can tell when he's setting up for his deadlifts and when he's setting up for his squats, or even how low he can go on squats. You can see that mobility, or having extra mobility, is not a problem for him. So those are some things you're going to want to look into as well. Now, if you are trying to stay more upright, as an assistance movement, I would work on a little bit high bar squatting, perhaps, taking that bar up maybe a little bit higher than we were used to and having a closer stance. But really, that is more like a lot of guys that squat big that way. They usually have huge quads. So you're going to want to work on the strength in your quads. I believe that you should be able to squat many different ways. That if you can squat many different ways, you do want to focus on where you're strong. You do want to put the emphasis there. You want to focus on that. I know that everyone always says to train your weaknesses. But it sounds to me like at your level that you're at, let's have you focus on that. Let's bring that stance out a little bit. Let's be okay with you leaning forward a little bit. All that's fine. But at the same time, it would be wise as a secondary barbell movement to work on bringing the stance back in a little bit, getting a little more quad activation so that you're strong from all positions, right? Typically what you're going to see with a guy that squats with a little bit closer stance, sometimes you're going to see that barbell creep up a little bit higher, and they're going to be more upright. The higher the barbell is, I believe, the more upright you need to be. Now, as a geared powerlifter, this is just talking strictly raw. That's all we've been talking about here so far. As a geared powerlifter, things start to really change. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter as much when you're in gear. You can do all kinds of different things, but some of the rules still apply. You can set the bar low, a la Donnie Thompson, and hit some huge squats. Donnie would lean forward a lot, but Donnie was a very, very large individual. And you can set world records that way. Or you can be a little bit more like Henry Thomason, who's a little bit more upright, or quite a bit more upright, and you can smash on weights like 1,300 pounds. He hasn't officially hit a 1,300-pound squat yet, but he will. You could be more upright like a monster like that. So to answer your question, work on trying to strengthen up that groin. Some exercise to strengthen up the groin would be sumo-style deadlifts, raw, done for sets of 5, sets of 6, multiple sets of 5 and 6 reps. Don't just go heavy. Actually go a little bit on the lighter side and feel the muscle, work the muscle. Don't release the weights on the floor. Stay tight and come back up. Try to get a little bit of rhythm going. Maybe do, let's just say, 5s to 5. After those 5s to 5 are complete, maybe do like 2 sets of 15. Let's really try to get in there and try to work that. Another great way to work the groin and work the hips is a box squat. I saw you over there in your super training shirt. Good call. Wide stance box squat, even a wide stance box squat done high, not Jesse Burdick high, but high like squatting onto a box high. You guys know what I'm saying. Don't get high before you work out. That's not what the people's coach is recommending. I'm suggesting that you squat in a higher box wide. And why do I suggest that? So you don't kill your hips in your first squat session. But there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of different forms. There's a lot of different techniques that people are going to have. You need to figure out what's going to work best for you. So it sounds to me like take your stance out a little bit. Don't go out too far. And let's try to modify and perfect the form and technique that you have right now. And let's try to build that up. Utilize some different techniques. Utilize some different movements. Try some reverse band squats so the weights aren't so heavy at the bottom. Try some squats against chains, again, so the weights aren't so heavy at the bottom. Try some box squats, so again, you're getting a little relief out of the bottom of that lift. Try some different movements so that you can build your strength, build up those strength curves in different ways. Strength is never a weakness, and that is it from supertraining.tv.